Hey there. I am super excited to share with you today's episode. I had a conversation with interior designer Wendy Valente. Wendy owns the company Livewell Designs, and after her oldest daughter was diagnosed with autism spectrum disorder, she decided to create a niche within her company called Designing Interiors for Autism. I just love how she took something that she was passionate about and turned that into a way to serve the exceptional needs community. Wendy talks all about what goes into designing a room for a child on the spectrum, as well as considerations to take if you have a child with sensory processing disorder or ADHD. What she does is break things down and make it so very simple. I am super excited to share this with you today. I know you're going to find value in it. Now let's get started. Welcome to the Big Abilities Podcast. I'm your host, Amy Nielsen. At Big Abilities, we hope to give families the tools they need to help their children with autism, ADHD, and other developmental disabilities overcome their struggles while also focusing on their strengths. Thanks for joining me. Hey, Wendy, I am so excited to have you on the podcast today. I heard you on my friend Rob Gorski, the Autism Dad's podcast, and I think the second the podcast was over, I'm like Googling you and I had to call you immediately. But before I blurt out what you do, I want to give you a chance to introduce yourself and tell the listeners what you do.
So my name is Wendy Valente, and I am the owner and designer for Livewell Designs. A couple years ago, our oldest daughter was diagnosed with autism and ADHD, which has snowballed into shifting my business to designing interiors for autism. So in a nutshell, that's me right now.
I think that is just so innovative that you took something that you were already doing, and then once your daughter was diagnosed, you were able to take that and kind of shift it a little bit to provide services to families like yours that have a child on the autism spectrum. I just think that is brilliant.
Thank you. I love design, and this was my way of helping my child with the knowledge I already had. I did some research and I couldn't really find a whole lot of information. There is the designing for autism on a commercial level, but residentially in our own homes, it's not easily available. We talk about sensory rooms, sensory spaces, but no one really tells you exactly how to design it for your child, because obviously the spectrum is the spectrum. There's no one child alike, definitely not a same diagnosis for each individual child with autism. So this is designed specifically for you to know and understand.
Well, it's so funny. I wish I would have found you about 6 months ago, because I recently redid my son's room. He's 5.5 years old and he has autism spectrum disorder and ADHD as well. And I had no idea how to get started. And it's funny because one morning I walked into his room and we kept him in his crib until, he was too big for it, because I didn't know what to do next with him for safety reasons and just a whole host of things. I was really concerned about moving him out of that crib. But I walked in as he got close to 5 years old and I'm like, it's time. And I had no idea where to begin. And luckily for me, my daughter had just completed 2 courses in interior design, and she has a sibling with autism spectrum disorder. So she kind of designed the room for me, but just finding a bed that I knew he would be safe in was really hard. And we wanted one that we could build a sensory space underneath. She did it all and she did a great job, but I am the least creative person in the room. However, I'm the person in the room that wants that room to be done by someone creative. So it's really great that you can offer that service to families, because not everyone was lucky enough like me that had a daughter that had some experience in that. So what goes into, in your opinion, what goes into designing a space for a child on the autism spectrum, a bedroom specifically?
In a bedroom. So first, the most important thing is to connect with the child or children that are going to be using the space. So ideally the parent is best, or whoever is the primary caretaker for these children should be the one to kind of spearhead the whole thing, because you're going to understand their needs a lot better than anybody else. So I might probe for questions to dig deeper and understand maybe why we have those preferences or those specific needs, so that we can understand what you need, not what everybody needs, what you specifically need to create this space. So we have to think about the color of the room. That color, I seriously could talk about color for an hour because color is not just about how pretty it looks, it's also about psychology. What does that color mean? How does that make me feel? The one example I love to put out there is a red color. Red is extremely active. It immediately gets your heart racing. You didn't do anything, you didn't exercise, all you did was show up in this space and it's red and your heart begins to race. Now, that's extremely unsafe for people with a heart condition, but it's also very, very exciting, which is not what we need for a calming bedroom.
Well, and as parents, when we think about decorating our child's bedroom, we think about what are they into in the moment. So
That's
if they're
right.
into cars, McQueen is red. So you could envision I'm doing my child a favor by buying them this giant red race car bed, when to your point, without an understanding of how color impacts your mood or how you feel, that could be the absolutely wrong thing to do.
Exactly. We have been conditioned from a very young age to personalize our bedroom. That's where we keep all of our things. A lot of times we have toys in there. It's definitely a no at the Valente house on the toys in a bedroom. They easily creep in there. But time and time again, they will be up playing instead of in their bed,
That is
calming down,
so true.
going to sleep. Yes. So I do not like toys in a bedroom, but if it's the only place for that, then they need to be hidden, put away. It helps to have a clean space and organized space, because then there'll be more room to walk around. It won't be as visually disturbing.
Yeah.
And it's not going to be like, oh, my toys, I want to get up, I want to play. That's the opposite of what we want.
Right. And actually, that's how we did our son's bedroom. His bedroom downstairs is really, really small. So we kind of didn't have the option of putting toys in there. But I also kind of felt like you said, I don't want him to think that this is a place for play. This is a place for relaxation. One of the things that my daughter put in his room was this egg chair. We got it from IKEA. And he loves to get inside of that and just close it. A lot of times if he's having a meltdown or he's overstimulated, I'll take him to his room, and not as punishment, but a place for him to, re-regulate himself. And I'll put him in that chair and I'll close it and I'll spin him one way, a few spins, and then spin him another. Cause I learned in OT, if you go one way, you got to go the other. And it is amazing how him just feeling cocooned in that space and just that movement just absolutely calms him. And it would have never been something that I thought of. That was all my daughter.
Yes, it's a very common item that people are getting, or something similar. For instance, we have hammocks that we've installed the ends closer together. So now they're a swing, a very inexpensive thing to get and install. And it's in our basement and it's installed into our floorboards. So even that, it just kind of hugs them, which
Right.
they love. Plus they love that movement of swinging. But
Yeah.
in our sense, this is in our sensory space, not a bedroom.
Right.
But having those calming items within a bedroom is very good. It could be certain lighting, fabrics, especially the blankets, but keep in mind the color of everything. So we've also made the mistake, because we're still figuring it all out. We have 3 kids in one room. So color just threw up all over the place. Okay. So, but I'm looking and I'm staring at this room going, what is it that makes this space so exciting and so colorful? And it comes down to the blankets. They're stuffed animals.
Mm-hmm.
There's we a lot of children on the spectrum have like they're hoarders, or in little kids hoarders of their things, and it is a lot for one space. I try time and time again to get them to pare down. And one of the easy things that I could do was I switched out their sheets. instead of Daniel Tiger, Paw Patrol, and Doc McStuffins on sheets, we just went with white. Or you can go with a solid color, preferably a muted tone, or maybe pastel, something that's not that jumping out at you and in your face type of color. More muted, more calming colors. And
when you think about it, when you go to a spa, everything's white.
yes, it's
And
very clean.
exactly. And we feel relaxed instantly when we walk in there. Now, I know a lot of people listening are probably wondering, I would love to have someone like you help me through that. How do you specifically help parents design these types of spaces?
So I have a Facebook group. It's a private Facebook group called Designing Interiors for Autism. Now, please know that that is not restricted to just autism. We're talking ADHD, sensory processing, and any other related conditions. Anybody kind of fitting underneath that umbrella is welcome into that group to find different ideas, products, articles, tips, you name it, it's kind of in there. We do a little bit of like education. So at one point I was talking about executive function, a term I had recently learned. Mm-hmm. And I broke that down into what that was, what that means, and how we can best help with that.
Well, I think one of the things that you said prior, don't allow your child to, when I say don't allow, I don't mean that in a harsh sense, but I mean, limit what they can have in that bedroom, because if you want them to be able to maintain that space, if they struggle with executive functioning skills and they've got 8,000 toys in their room and you tell them to go clean their room, it's not happening.
Nope. And I tell that to my kids all the time. So, and I have, as far as I know, 2 neurotypical children in addition to our child on the spectrum. So in addition to the Facebook group, which is incredible, it's got tons of information in there. You know, I always recommend people to post, share what works for them, share your pictures. I love pictures. Show me all of them. So that is one way to start understanding what you need to do and kind of rethinking how we design, because how we design for children with autism is totally different from how we design neurotypical people. So I just rolled out a workshop last week specifically on sensory spaces. That's a paid program. You're going to get all the information you need out of that for a sensory space.
So are we talking like moving from the bedroom into other areas of the home, or could that be in the bedroom and other places? What do you mean by sensory space?
So a space designated just for sensory items, because it can be a calming space, but a lot of times it's energetic. It's getting stimulation from swings or from the lights or maybe the trampoline. There's so many different things, but this is a designated space, and it doesn't have to be big. It can be a closet. It can be a half bath that's no longer in use. It can really be something very, very small if you do not have the capability of making a large room for this.
Well, it could probably even be outside, right? Like on a back porch.
Depending on where you live, like for us, we had to create one inside, and we use our basement. You know, we get like 5 months of winter here. So our kids need that stimulation, especially now. I don't recommend putting your sensory space within the bedroom because, again, we're trying to keep the bedroom and the activities that happen there. Anything else exciting should be in a separate space. You can use the living room and double as a living room and a sensory space, depending on what you have to work with.
Okay. And you also said something earlier that as far as sensory spaces or designing interiors for autism or ADHD or sensory processing disorder, available to the public is mostly commercial people. You see those spaces in airports and theme parks, but this is so unique to be able to bring that into our home, and such a necessity. I know once we, redid my son's room, it has just really made such a huge impact. And one of the things, and you touched on this, was lighting. My daughter put these teeny little lights, but they weren't bulbs. I don't know what they're called. They're on a, so they can't take a bulb off and hurt himself or swallow it. He has a very low loft bed, and she thread them in the slats under the bed. And so at night we turn those on for our story time, And just, it's so relaxing to be in there with those lights as opposed to before when we had this, bedside lamp that was so bright. This is just dim enough that you can see the words on the page, but not to overstimulate him prior to bed. And it's just made such a difference. So, sensory space, bedroom, what about other areas of your home, just in general? Do you help parents to say maybe work on safety issues or feeding issues or family spaces through design as well?
Yes, I do. So, in addition to everything else, I do have a larger course, which can be, you do it yourself. You can do it with me, which is preferred because you get additional calls with me. Or if you're not able to, like, if you don't have the time to get this done and execute this, you can have me to do this for you. That is still me doing it with you because I need to probe for tons of different information so that I can properly design the space. But multiple different ways of working with me based on your needs, your expertise, and your budget.
Right.
We can definitely get all of that. So in that, we do have 4 modules. It's one is on lighting, specific lumens and Kelvin to use as far as light bulbs and the type of light that you're going to get. I don't know if I talk about safety in there, but I definitely talk about it in general.
Right.
The certain types of furniture that you might need to purchase, why this one works and why this doesn't. There's a long section on color, there's texture, and there's floor plans. I think it might be called layout. I forget now. But the layout of the room is going to help with safety. If you have a big sofa kind of in traffic pattern, it's going to get hit. The child's probably going to throw themselves on it. They're going to flip over the backside and onto the front and get that stimulation from that piece of furniture. So moving it and creating a space will be better for safety reasons.
I just love all of this. And I guess also you kind of said it's getting to know that child on a deeper level. So if you have a child, say, with profound ADHD, that's very prone to impulsive behavior such as jumping or climbing, you would be less inclined to put, say, a bunk bed in that child's room, or something that they could jump off of and get hurt. So you probably really just like probe, kind of like you said, to just really get to know that child on a deeper level and what their behaviors are and their needs are.
Right. Because I know my daughter the best, but I'm going to need to get to know your child on that super deep level. And that could create, a few additional calls between us so that we can really get that done right the first time. That's the most important part.
Okay. So I'm super interested for you to share some personal stories, either about design spaces that you did for your own children or for other children, and kind of like what the outcomes of that were for the family. So can you tell us a few stories?
Sure. So one of my followers in my group, she's not even in a paid program. She messaged me recently to tell me that she took some of the ideas I gave her, which were just from the group, and she created a sensory space, and her children absolutely love it. They spent hours in it. And again, this is just the information in the group. That's not working with me. She already found incredible value with just what's in there.
That is great.
That was so nice to wake up to on a Saturday, I think.
Well, because what you're doing is impacting families, and it's huge because I think about, I've already, even though we've already done our son's room, there's things I know just from talking to you and being in the group that I need to rethink. But something I was also thinking about is because as you're talking about color, and we did, I think, a pretty decent job in his bedroom, but now I'm thinking about his playroom, and it literally looks like, the toy section at Target threw up all over it. Is it kind of okay to have a space like that they do have all of their favorite Thomas the Train and Daniel Tiger everywhere, as long as it's kind of in one location? Or do we really need to rethink all of those spaces for our kiddos?
Well, we have a playroom as well, and it's always a disaster. I can never get the kids to clean up or put things back to where it belongs, but it is still good to have that space, that separate space they can play in. The kids always bring out toys to the living room and therefore trickle it all the way through the dining room and kitchen. But but the living room is comfortable. We have comfortable furniture, the TV and everything. So the living room kind of doubles as a play space and sensory area. And I think it just depends on the space that you have to work with.
Right. And you cater that to each individual client.
That's right. So when it comes to the toys, they can be in the sensory space. If you have like one whole room and it needs to be toys and it needs to be sensory, just try and keep the toys cleaned up and organized, because then they can be played with. Then they can be cleaned up and out of the way so that you can do the more active things in that space.
Right. We have a closet downstairs that was all the Christmas decorations, and it was jam packed. And so when my son was younger, I kept his toys in the kitchen cupboards. And then now, we moved all the decorations out to the garage, got some big shelving. So I was able to move everything into that closet for him. But just, being creative. And I think sometimes we think that toys don't belong in the kitchen. But that's what I did. I had bins with the toys, and they were in combined dishes, so I could make that space where they were out of sight, out of mind when it was bedtime or nap time, not shoved in his bedroom. And it really did help. And then once I was able to rethink that, move those decorations out, and then could take over that closet. And now he goes into that closet and it's like toy shopping, for him to pull out what he wants to play with. But
that's right.
I think it makes play. I know this is a little bit off topic, but I think when you work with designing spaces for autism, all of these things come into consideration, and play is a very big, important part of our children's development. And we're not saying to discourage play, but I notice with my son, if his toys are organized like by theme or by topic, which is how I have them in bins, I'm very type A. When he pulls them out, it's so much easier for him to play imaginatively and productively when things are organized and it's not just chaos. I mean, a toy box is like the worst invention on earth, I think. I remember having one as a child. You can never find anything.
You can't find anything. I love, actually, you can see behind me, but I have these like 9 cube shelves. They're my absolute favorite because games can go there, and you can have the canvas bins that you can put the smaller items in, or even, like we put puzzles in like a bag, a Ziploc bag, and then we can put multiple puzzles in one of those. Things like that where it's easily accessible, but it can be tucked away and hidden really nice out of sight, but also just in plain sight. So if you need to double a space like a living room, you can just get one of these and you can put all of the things in it, and it's beautiful.
And it's a very inexpensive solution as well.
That's right.
I'm actually in my oldest son's bedroom right now. He's 19. He's a college student. He has the coolest desk. So this is where I usually record, but he has one in here. I think Barkley has a 4 cube in his bedroom, and in the playroom, there's about 6 of them. They're just the most versatile pieces of furniture.
And we have a bench one. So it's got 4 underneath and a cushion on top so that you can go sit, put on your shoes, and then it can store all the shoes underneath. I mean, any of these, I'd have 100 of them.
Right. Exactly.
Thinking outside the box. And we are used to evolving. As our child's needs change, we evolve our education plan, our routines at home, and what have you. So that's kind of what design does sometimes, especially for children. Their preferences and needs change on a pretty rapid basis. So something that works now might not work in a couple of months.
Right.
It just depends. So being flexible or having multifunctional pieces of furniture really help you not waste money.
Yeah. And that's something that I heard you say, I think it was in one of your Facebook Lives, about a lot of times if we don't have that interior design experience, and I don't, we just go out and buy things and we don't really know what we're buying, and we bring it home and it's not really the right fit, or it isn't conducive to the function that we were hoping it to fill. And that's one of the things that you do, is help us develop a plan. So we're not just, wasting money on things that aren't going to serve the function we need it to serve.
That's right. So We have tons of time and money that goes into a project. We don't want to be wasting either, because we don't have just unlimited amounts of time, especially. Kids require a lot from us. So we don't want to be researching all of this and getting all of these items, waiting for them, because it takes a long time these days for things to arrive. We don't want to be wasting time on something that's not going to work, or
Right.
wasting money on something that your child isn't going to like. So I'm trying to cut the crap, cut all of that unnecessary crap out.
And we sometimes think that just more stuff is loving our kids more, or, being a better parent, the more things they have. But when you do have that space that's just conducive to peace and calm, it makes a big difference. I just think what you're doing is so exciting. And I can't wait to, get more involved in the group and see the things that, people are doing in their spaces from what they learned from you. I just think it's brilliant. So can you share all the ways that people can connect with you?
Right now, the Facebook group is the easiest way.
Okay.
There's only a couple of questions I ask for you to get in, and pretty much as long as you have a connection to a person, doesn't have to be a child, a
Okay.
person with autism, because this can be adopted for any age. It
Right.
doesn't matter. It's about the needs of the person the space is being used for.
Okay. So, and what's the name of that group again? Just so I can have it here at the end.
It's Designing Interiors for Autism. That's the best way to get the information that you need to kind of get started, see what I'm about, and then we can always chat on a Zoom call, an actual phone call, just talk to me. I'm not going to give you everything for free, but I'm definitely going to give you some good stuff in that group to start making your brain.
Well, and that's what's great about the group. It is free. And just to your point, you had a client in that group, or a parent that hadn't paid for any services and was able to take what they learned in that group and create a sensory space. And I think that's awesome, because a lot of times, especially now, budget can be of a concern. So that's a great place that people can go for free and gain some of these tips. And then what if they want to go deeper with you? What does that look like?
We would start by having a call together to see what your needs are, what your child's needs are. Are you looking to do your whole house or just a specific room? And then
Okay.
I'll guide you to what's best for you. The whole course, the larger course, that one is the best value. You're going to learn everything that you need to know, and then be able to adapt it for each individual space within your house.
Okay.
So it's replicatable. But there's the sensory spaces, and soon I will be doing, probably in another week or two, I will have a specific one on bedrooms.
Okay. That's great.
Yeah, so specific spaces that I know people need because they tell me when they come into the group. And then I can design something specifically for you guys. And that's what happened last week. Tons of people are asking and not sure how to create a sensory space. So I went ahead and created that. Now, there is someone who creates some of this with me. Her name is Kimberly Douglas, and she is a huge, huge resource in the autism world. So I get my verbiage right and everything, because I'm a designer. I am not a scholar. So it is nice to have somebody to tell me, like, maybe you should word it differently so that it doesn't sound horrible or something.
Well, everything that I've read in there sounds great. And the videos are awesome. So I really encourage anybody listening to join that group. I'm over there. You can say hi to me. And I haven't posted pictures of my son's room in there yet, but I'm going to, because I found like the perfect bed for him. Loved it. And it was a lot of hard work. And I'm sure had I found you earlier, I could have, saved myself a lot of heartache, but I did have my daughter there helping me. But I am loving what you're doing and taking kind of like me too, having a child in the autism spectrum, it changes your life. And
Sure.
you have to rethink what everything looks like in your life, including the living spaces. And I love how you're taking that and you're helping other people, because it becomes so worthwhile to know that you can make an impact on other people. And it's not just designing a space that looks beautiful, but designing a space that's functional, that can decrease meltdowns, increase self-regulation, decrease confrontation between parent and child over messy. And, I just love it. So I'm so glad that I heard you on Rob's podcast.
You called, I'm like, who is calling me from Florida?
And shout out to Rob for connecting with you and you guys getting together. And then I look forward to continuing to get to know you and look forward to joining in the group. And anybody that wants to meet me over there, let's start a conversation about the types of spaces we want for our children. So thank you, Wendy. Have a great rest of your day, and we will chat soon.
Okay, thank you.
Pretty cool, right? I just love what Wendy does. So I hope that you join her Facebook group. I will put a link to that as well as all of her contact information in the show notes, because if you're like me, after you listen to this, you're going to want to call her right away and see how you can work with her. So before we close, I want to read a quote directly from Wendy about designing interiors for autism. Designing interiors for autism is not just about getting things that are for sensory spaces. It's deeper than that. It's about you learning all the things that make your child unique and facilitating their needs with the perfect item, understanding how color, clutter, lighting, textures, and layout all play an important role in creating a space exactly for the activity and the person using the space. Doing this allows for better behaviors, better outcomes, and self-regulation. Very well said, Wendy. Thank you for listening. Have a great rest of your day. Thank you for listening today to the Big Abilities Podcast. I hope you learned something, and remember, you got this.